Have you ever heard that OSHA randomly does OSHA audits? You never know who they're going to hit. They could hit anybody. You just don't know. Well, I got some good news for you. That is not completely true. It's scary, but it's not really true. You see, in this episode, I'm going to tell you the truth. We're going to talk about the real reason that OSHA shows up, why they would come to your facility, and what you can do to prevent that from happening. Now, we're going to talk about how you can avoid an OSHA audit, but in order to do that, we got to talk about why they actually come. So stick around because this episode is going to be really, really helpful. I'm going to count down the 7 reasons that OSHA will show up at your front door, and we'll talk about what you can do to make sure you're prepared if that were to happen. Let's dive in. Well, hey friend, my name is David Sawyer. I'm a safety coach. I help busy safety managers go from feeling overwhelmed to OSHA ready. And in this episode, I want to talk about why OSHA actually shows up. So I'm going to do this a little bit different. If you were to go to the OSHA.gov homepage and you just search through what triggers an OSHA audit, you're going to pull up a list of items that trigger an OSHA audit. And I did that before I recorded this video. I wanted to make sure that I was exactly in tune with what they had on the website, but it's not as clear the way that they put it. So I'm going to unpack what they have on their website so you can know the real truth of why they show up, why they would come to your company. Now, if this is something you're interested in, I would highly recommend you pause the video, go to my website, helpwithosha.com, and you can access a free OSHA audit checklist. This is a checklist that will help you prepare your team for an unexpected audit. It shows you exactly what you need, and it is a literal checklist that you can go through. But it's not just a PDF. It's not just something you download and put it in a drawer. This is actually a video where I'm going to walk you through the checklist and explain how this applies to your company. So do it today. It's a great starting point. It goes with this video. Go to my website, helpwithosha.com. Access the free checklist. It's an OSHA audit checklist, and that'll be a great way for you to get started and to kind of work with me as we go through this video. Now, let's talk about the top 7 reasons that they show up. And I want to do a countdown. So I'm going to do number 7 because this one's not even on their list. Like when you go to the website, this one doesn't even show up, but it kind of gets grafted in and you'll see why. So the number 7 reason why OSHA shows up is because there's some media attention. There's something in the news. There's something in the community. There's something going on. And I'll give you a quick story. One of my friends actually started a company. It was up in the Raleigh area of North Carolina. And he started a company. He was in business just for a couple years. And he was actually doing good. I mean, things were working out. He was really starting to make a profit. The word was getting out. The buzz was getting out. And he had a local film crew come out and actually do a quick news piece on him. I can't remember if it was a video or if it was just a newspaper article. It might have just been a newspaper article or a local magazine article. I cannot remember, to be completely truthful with you. But what happened was that picture, they interviewed him. He's talking about his company. He's talking about his product. Everything's going smooth. And they took some pictures of his facility. Well, in the pictures, there were some things that people were doing that were unsafe. There were some extension cords going across the floor. There were some different crane and hoists in the background. And lo and behold, he actually got a phone call from Department of Labor, and they gave him a heads up. Hey, we noticed there's some issues in these pictures. You need to make sure you address them. Now, they never actually showed up at his facility, but that was an example where that media attention actually kind of put a spotlight on him for safety issues that he didn't even know existed. It was still a very small company at that time. But that's a small thing. If you have a large thing, if you have something that causes a fire or an explosion or somebody gets hurt and it makes the news, that will put a spotlight on your company. So they do show up, they do an audit because of media attention. Now, that's okay. Sometimes media attention's great. You just want to make sure you got your ducks in a row so that nothing is in the background of those pictures. All right, number 7. Now we're getting this kind of a little bit more of the meat and potatoes of it. So number 6. Number 7 was media attention. Number 6 is a high injury rate. Now, this is one thing that OSHA and the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they are very, very good at. They are really good at documenting injuries. So with the internet, with computers, with AI, with technology, they have come a long way in actually capturing data from industries. So they have data that gets turned in every year from different companies, different states, different industries, different size companies, and they can determine, based on the data that they have, they can determine where your injury rate should be. So if your injury rate should be under 2 when you compare yourself to other companies in your industry, and your injury rate is a 7 or an 8 or a 9, guess what? That's a big red flag that they're waving over top of your company saying, hey, this company has a high injury rate. We need to go check out what they're doing because we don't feel like they're keeping their employees safe. So the injury rate, and there's different metrics here. I won't go into all the details of it, but there's DART rate and there's different types of rates that you can measure depending on lost time or lost days or what you're measuring. But just know that OSHA has a very clear statistical number they're looking at for your industry to determine where your rate should be. And if it's high, then they're likely going to say, hey, we need to go check them out. So the injury rate can definitely trigger an OSHA audit. Now, number 5 on the list. This one, not quite as common. You kind of know this one's coming. This is a follow-up inspection. So if you have a follow-up inspection, that means you've already had an inspection. And typically, I'd say 90% of the time, this is a follow-up inspection because there hasn't been a corrective action put in place. So if they came out in the month of April and they said, hey, we found these issues, and you failed to correct those issues, you failed to abate, and you said, hey, you know what? I got other things to do. I'm not doing that right now. Well, if you fail to correct the issue, then OSHA is going to do a follow-up inspection. Now, they can also do a follow-up inspection 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, even if you have corrected the issues. But they're much more likely to do it if they don't have noticed that you've corrected the issues, because they have to make sure that you're keeping your employees safe. So number 5 on the list is a follow-up inspection. Again, you probably know this is coming because you failed to do what you were supposed to do the first time around, and the penalties for a repeat violation are going to be much, much more severe. All right, number 4, here we go. This is one that can fly under the radar. This is typically why people say they're random. They're not random. There is a reason they're coming. It's called a special emphasis program. Now, there are national emphasis programs and there are state emphasis programs. If you have a state OSHA program, then you will have state emphasis programs. Now, what this is in the national emphasis program, you can, again, punch this in your Google machine and you can pull this up. But in the national emphasis program, there are going to be some key safety issues that are on that list. One of which is hexavalent chromium. And you might go, well, God bless you, David. Well, what I mean by hexavalent chromium is usually a gas that is emitted when you weld stainless steel. So that is an example of a program where they go, hey, if you're doing this, if you have this chemical, then we're worried about it. We're worried about this hazard. We're gonna make sure that we target companies that have this problem. Same with fall protection. So in North Carolina, we have a list of special emphasis programs. There's usually about half a dozen emphasis programs. And one of the programs in North Carolina where I'm recording this is just getting ready to start up in the month of October. We got a few months, but they've kind of been putting notices out. It's called a struck by emphasis program, meaning they've had a lot of struck by accidents with forklifts and with different equipment, pallet jacks, things going through a warehouse or going through a yard, like a yard truck or yard dog, and having employees getting struck by and seriously injured or killed. And so they are putting a special emphasis program out in October for struck by accidents here in my state of North Carolina. Again, you can look this up for your state, but if you are in an industry or you have hazards that fall under this program, they need to be at the top of the list for what you are correcting, what you're getting in order, making sure you have a training program, you have clear expectations on how to handle that. So special emphasis programs are really the ones that people go, well, it was just random. No, it wasn't random. They were looking at that specific hazard, and your organization does that job. Okay? Number 3. So we got special emphasis programs, number 4. Number 3, this one is referrals. Referrals. Typically referrals by outside agencies. Your fire marshal could refer you. Your EPA inspector could refer you. Your USDA inspector could refer you. And this has long-standing roots. And we all remember, I won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but we remember when 9/11 happened, one of the things that popped up after that was how these different government agencies didn't talk to each other. They were kind of working in silos. They weren't communicating between the different agencies. And that same kind of thing has happened with OSHA, where you might have a USDA inspector in a plant every single day of the week inspecting for food safety. And they have the company has the doors chained and bolted shut on the emergency doors, and the USDA inspector didn't say anything. Because I said, well, I'm dealing with food. I'm not dealing with that. That's not my realm. That's not my job. I'm just doing this. And they realized, you know what? Safety is something we cannot take lightly. If any agency sees a safety problem, they are to report it. And so that's usually how a referral happens, is they go, whoa, we have an inspector in this plant, fire marshals in this plant, again, USDA, FDA, whatever it might be, and they see a OSHA violation, they see a safety problem, especially something that could get somebody killed or seriously injured, then they're gonna share that with the local OSHA office, and then OSHA is going to do an inspection because they're looking out for the employees to make sure they're being safe. So a referral is the number 3 reason that they would show up. Now, I'm going to tell you something. We've covered several issues, and they're all legitimate. They're all real. They're all reasons that OSHA could come in your front door. But I am telling you right now, those are not very common in the world of OSHA audits. There are 2 primary reasons that OSHA comes into your door. I'd say 80% of OSHA inspections happen because of one of these 2 things. So tune in, dial in, focus in. These 2 things are what you need to be crystal clear on. The first one is, and this should not be a surprise, but it's up there. Number 2 reason, serious injury. If you have a fatality, if you have an amputation, if you have employees that go to the hospital, if you have employees that lose an eye on the job, odds are you are going to be contacted by OSHA and you are going to have an OSHA inspection at your facility. A serious injury means something went wrong, and OSHA wants to know what. A fatality, where an employee is killed on the job, OSHA is going to investigate. They're going to find out what happened. They're going to do an inspection to determine exactly what caused that death. It really gets back to the heart of safety, where we say, hey, all accidents can be prevented, right? I've heard that for years. I'm sure you've heard that. All accidents are preventable. Well, when you have that mindset that something went wrong for that employee to get killed, something went wrong for that employee to have a life-altering injury, OSHA is going to show up. Now, the flip side of that is this is preventable. If you can prevent a fatality, a serious injury, an amputation, a hospitalization, when you prevent that from happening, they're not coming. They're not going to come bother you. They're not going to come do an inspection. They're not going to come find out what you're doing wrong, because you're not doing anything wrong. You're preventing people from getting hurt. So in my program, my stress-free safety program, when I coach safety managers, whether they've been a safety manager for a decade or longer, or whether it is like their first month on the job, I always tell them the same thing. You have to ask the question, what is going to hurt someone? There can be serious injuries. There can be minor injuries, but you should have all of them on your radar. Where is someone most likely to get hurt? Where is someone most likely to get seriously hurt? When you prevent a serious injury, you will prevent an OSHA inspection. Now, I saved the number one. Doing our countdown, we went through them. Let me do a quick review. All right. Number 7, media attention. All right, countdown. Number 6, high injury rate. Number 5, my bad. Number 5, follow-up inspections. Number 4, emphasis programs. Number 3, referrals. Number 2, serious injuries. So as we do the countdown, what do you think the number one reason that OSHA shows up is? You probably know it right now. You've probably been, saying it in your mind or saying it out loud. The number one reason that OSHA shows up is because, ding, 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 an employee complaint. An employee complaint. Now, if I was in person with you right now and I was sitting across the table from you and we were talking about this, I would ask you a question. What kind of employee complains to OSHA? There's an answer to that. It's a disgruntled employee. A disgruntled employee is an employee that is frustrated. There's somebody that's at the end of their rope. There's somebody that doesn't feel like anyone's listening to them. There's somebody that feels like they have said something and it's fallen on deaf ears. So a disgruntled employee is who complains to OSHA, because any other employee, if they're not disgruntled, if they're engaged, if they care about their job and they want to talk to their boss, they will communicate with their supervisor the safety concern before they communicate to OSHA. Now, when an employee does file a complaint with OSHA, there's a question on the form that says, have you brought this up to your management? Have you brought this up to the leadership team? And if they say, yeah, I've told them about it multiple times and they haven't done anything about it. Wow. How bad does that look on the company, on the manager, on the leadership? You see, you can prevent an unexpected OSHA audit. Really, you can prevent it. You prevent an unexpected OSHA audit by not having disgruntled employees. Now, I know it's not always possible. Some people are just going to have problems, right? If you're in HR, I know you know what I'm talking about, right? Let's be honest. Some people are just, They're always the victim. They're always the person that's angry. They're always the person that gets, upset when really we're all working together here. But I'm telling you, if you create a space where employees feel like I'm being heard, that's the key. They have to feel like they're being heard. If I feel like I'm being heard, when they bring up the fact that the fire extinguishers are blocked, or the exit doors are closed and blocked or locked, or the fire alarm doesn't work, or whatever they're bringing up, you listen to them. You engage with them. You follow up with them. You make them feel heard, and you correct the problems if there are actual problems. We can always improve. That's the thing. We can always improve. So, and that's something when I do training events with companies, I almost always will point out at the very end of the training, listen, if you know of a way to make this better, please share it with us. We're not perfect. The program isn't perfect, but it can be made better. And it's always made better when we have more participation, more engagement from employees. So employee complaint is the number one reason they show up. If an employee complains to OSHA, right? And nowadays they can do it in a lot of different ways with technology. But when they complain to OSHA, if they complain about something that is, could get somebody killed, OSHA has to show up. They're doing their job. They want to make sure nobody gets killed. If they complain about something minor, like, I don't know, something that's not a big deal, then you're more likely to get a phone call or an email or, hey, we got an employee complaining about this. Give us your records to explain it. And you're not going to necessarily get an on-site visit. If you get multiple complaints from multiple employees over, a certain amount of time, yeah, they're going to show up. That's their job. So employee complaint, that is the number one reason that OSHA shows up. Now, if you have enjoyed this episode, if you feel like, hey, I actually, I knew the list on the OSHA website, but I didn't always know how it fit together. I hope this helped you. I hope it was beneficial. I will tell you, if this resonated with you, if you feel like if OSHA knocked on the door right now, you would feel, I'm not prepared yet, I would highly recommend that you check out my OSHA Audit Ready Challenge. This is a new challenge that I've just started in the past month. I'm actually conducting one today, but as I'm putting this video out, I'm conducting a challenge today. So you can't get on this one because it's happening now, but I'm going to be doing this on a routine basis. And if you sign up on my website, go to helpwithosha.com/challenge, and I will notify you when I'm doing the next challenge. What this is a 4-day live event. So it's typically done on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's 1 hour per day, and it's designed not just to give you information, but literally to get you in a position where you feel confident, prepared, and OSHA ready for an unexpected audit. So it's not just paperwork, but it is paperwork. It's not just your team, but it is your team. It's also making sure that you know the format that OSHA uses, and we make it specific to your company because every company is different. Like we said, different industries, different emphasis programs, and I will dial in with you and we will talk about exactly what and why OSHA would show up at your facility. What are people most likely to complain about? How are people most likely to get hurt? We will drill this down, and then you will have a game plan should OSHA show up. That way you don't feel like unprepared. This can literally save you hours and hours of stress, lost sleep, and it will save you thousands of dollars because when you're prepared, you're ready. Most OSHA audits don't fail because the manager doesn't care. They fail because the manager isn't prepared. Get prepared. So go to my website. Number one, get the audit checklist, which is if you go to helpwithosha.com, you can get that. Then you can follow up, check out the challenge. It's helpwithosha.com/challenge. and that will be a great way. I'll be happy to let you know when I'm doing the next one, because I'm getting a lot of people interested in signing up for it, and I'd love to get you involved because it'll be worth your time. It's something I wish was around when I was a safety manager. Now, with that being said, until we talk again, do everything you can to keep the people you work with safe, because no one should get hurt at work.